Sometimes what feels like a harmless trip down memory lane can slowly become a spiritual distraction or a spiritual detour. Hey everybody, I'm Jay and welcome to another episode of Fateful Impact. We've all done it. You're driving along, you're flipping through the radio stations and you land on that 80s station or whatever music you grew up with, and then it all happens. That one song comes on and suddenly your mind goes right back to that time in your life. Maybe it's high school, maybe it's your 20s, maybe it's a relationship, a place that you were at, or just a season in your life. And before you know it, you're reliving the past in your mind. Sometimes you even find yourself wishing you could go back there because it feels like life was better back then. This happens at Christmas time as well. Every year I find myself watching those old 70s and 80s Christmas commercials on YouTube. Something about those commercials takes me right back to that simpler time in life. The decorations, the music, the feeling of Christmas when you were younger, all of that just comes flooding back. And for a moment, you almost wish you could step back into that world again. But here's something we rarely stop and think about. Sometimes nostalgia can quietly become a spiritual distraction. It can pull our hearts and our minds backwards when God is trying to move us forward. One reason nostalgia is so powerful is because it changes how we remember things. Nostalgia has a tendency to only hold on to the highlights, but it often leaves out the struggles, the hard times. We remember the fun, we remember the friendships, we remember all the good moments, but we forget the difficulties. We forget about the mistakes and sometimes even the sin that was a part of that season of our life. The Bible shows us this exact problem. After God delivered Israel from slavery in Egypt, the people started complaining in the wilderness. And listen to what they said. In Numbers 11 and 5, they said, "We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost, all the cucumbers, the melons, the onions, and the garlic." They remembered all of the food, but they forgot about the chains. They forgot they were slaves. Nostalgia made their past look better than it really was. And this is one of the subtle ways the enemy works. He doesn't always tempt people with something obvious. Sometimes he simply reminds you of the past, whether it be old music, old places, old friends. And before you realize it, your heart starts drifting back toward a season of life that God already called you out of. You start thinking things like, those were the good old days. I mean, who's guilty of doing that? I know I am. But what we sometimes forget is that those seasons were also times when we were farther away from God than we probably are now, at least most of us. I can at least say that's the case for me. The enemy loves when believers begin to romanticize, if you will, about a life that God already rescued them from. God's work in our lives is always about moving forward, but nostalgia can keep our hearts looking backwards. God says in Isaiah 43, "Forget the former things. Don't dwell on that past. I'm doing a new thing." God didn't say the past didn't matter, but he did say don't dwell there. Don't set your tent up and camp there. The calling that God has on your life is not in your past. It's actually ahead of you. But if your mind is constantly drifting into the past, you will miss what God is trying to do right now in your life. Now, nostalgia itself isn't always wrong. And again, we all experience this. It's okay to remember good moments. It's okay to thank God for seasons of life that meant something to you, that you felt were important to you. But memories of the past should never become a substitute for obedience in the present. God didn't call you to live in yesterday. He's calling you to walk with Him today. So the next time nostalgia pulls your mind back into another season of life, ask yourself a simple question. Is this memory helping me grow closer to God? Or is this memory quietly distracting me from what God is calling me to do right now? Because sometimes what feels like a harmless trip down memory lane can slowly become a spiritual distraction or a spiritual detour. And God has something ahead of you that is far greater than anything that is behind you. That's my word for today. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. I'll catch you on the next one. God bless.